Well, that was faster than I was ready for. We'll go ahead and pop it open live now. All right, there we go. Well, hello, and good evening. We're coming to you live with a little special trading webinar tonight. What we're going to be talking about here is simple trading signals for any market. And just as we're going live now, we'll give it a minute for folks to trickle on in here. And we're going to have a great night. We're going to be here for about 1 hour on the dot. And we're going to talk a little bit about again, how to identify some simple entry points that can give us some favorable reward to risk ratios. And these are pretty common universal patterns that can be applied really at any time with the markets. And again, just to introduce myself, for those of you who don't know me yet, and I'm sure those of you who are watching do know me, but my name is Noah Davidson. I'm Coach D with TackleTrading.com. And I've, over the last almost 20 years now, I've taught thousands and thousands of people how to trade and how to invest and how to approach the markets more intelligently. And I've been a principal instructor for technical analysis courses and teaching people. One of the things I specialize in is in risk management and trade adjustment. So we've got a lot of ground to cover tonight. And again, I want to congratulate you for being here. You know, there's a lot of people out there, and our YouTube following is really steadily increasing. And it just, you know, we've got a great community of like-minded people who are looking for that edge. They're looking for a way to approach the markets more intelligently, to learn and understand how to control risk, to learn how to practice these things and build the skill set so they can trade more confidently. And a lot of people out there right now are looking for help in these markets. These markets are absolutely fascinating, you know, really, really interesting. So it looks like we got a good group here. Patricia, Barat, Sess, some of my favorite people here. Jason, Neil, Dennis, Diago, glad to have you guys here. So as we get to go in and we start talking about these things, I've got a list of stocks put together for you that I'm really excited to show you. And this is coming straight from our recent scouting reports. And every candidate I'm going to show you tonight comes from our coronavirus watch list. And we're going to talk about, well, I want to really kind of approach, there's two mindsets that I think most people right now are looking for in the market. And let me go ahead and you know, pop out of this and get rid of that little title slide there. And we'll start out just talking about the S&P today. And this market has done a phenomenal job. Let me go ahead and clear that drawing set. A phenomenal job so far of recovering. Now, a lot of people are full-blown bullish on the market at the moment. I'm a little skeptical that this bull rally is going to continue to run. I think we might have some volatility ahead of us, just based off of what's going on in bigger picture economics with the shutdown and everything else. But there's some really good opportunities out there, really good trading signals. And again, I think that most people out there are coming from two mindsets. One is they want to invest longer term. There's that buy the dip mentality. And whether that was the dip and we're done with it, or there's another leg down in the market, we got a little bit more bearishness ahead of us, and there's going to be another opportunity to buy that next dip, I don't know. At the end of the day, nobody knows. And anybody who tells you they do know, I think is probably full of it. So as we talk about what's going on with that current market, I can see where we've had a pretty solid recovery. We're getting right up into the area where I think that any bears that are left might be forced to capitulate, especially if we break that 3,000 mark and start heading back out to test those new highs. Where the market's at right at this moment is really kind of an interesting situation right here. You've got this, let me get the right color here, this yellow 200 period moving average and this old support resistance zone right here in the same zip code and that $3,000 benchmark. And so this market, if it starts to power up through that, that definitely makes a case for the bulls. And with what the Fed's announced today, with their continued easing on monetary policy, low interest rates until we see unemployment back where we want it, where we, et cetera, we know the Feds are committed to easy money and, this new world of modern monetary theory that we live in. So the big question in my mind, just as a trader and as an investor, is modern monetary theory and stimulus versus unemployment and shrinking GDP. So those are the big questions in my mind. And I think that we have to kind of approach those two different mindsets of investor versus trader. So what I wanted to talk about tonight is, again, if we go with the idea of, am I an investor? And am I looking for the long term, or am I a trader looking for short term? And the signals that we talk about tonight can be used by both investors and traders. And they can be used whether you're a beginner, whether you're brand new, or you have some experience. Okay, and that's going to be, we're going to go through both. Again, whether you're experienced or beginner. Now, it doesn't really matter. I know some of you here have been at this for quite some time, and I know that others out there are brand new to us. And so if you're an investor, you're going to be looking for things like value. You're going to be a value investor. You want to get that, good buy, an excellent purchase, and have a good understanding of what you're looking at long-term value-wise. And for me, I'm always looking for companies that pay dividends. I mean, how cool would it be to be able to leave your kids, 50,000 shares of Coca-Cola that you can collect dividends on, and or 50,000 shares of ExxonMobil or something like that pays a monster dividend. And to be able to build up a position over time where you can generate quarterly income and cash flow. A lot of investors are also looking to be able to sell options and collect premiums, and finding good candidates for that. And then really one of the big questions that I'm always looking at with investing that these markets create interesting opportunities for is just cost base. Can you approach an investment and work on lowering your cost base all the time? Now, that's just kind of a big picture investor kind of mindset. Now, for traders, we're looking for technical signals, and we're always looking for those signals. And ultimately what we're after is low risk, high reward. And a lot of you are already familiar with these signals. We're going to be talking about basic breakouts and retracements and what we're looking for in those. But I've never met an investor who didn't want a better sense of timing. So if you can kind of combine, now there's two different mindsets and two different temperaments that go along with that. But, those are important things to be able to do. Now, with this, there's also a lot of things where, traders may be interested in doing bi-directional, like they want to go both ways. We'll call that bi-direction. Okay, well, my pen's freaking out a little bit on me. There we go. So bi-directional, where you can go, bullish or bearish. You can make money either way. A lot of traders want to work with options so they can get leverage. And again, ultimately what it comes down to is that risk versus reward ratio. Now, those are going to be the important things we talk about. Now, whether you're approaching this market from an investor perspective, longer term, and you want to improve your timing to just clean up your entries, to know where to put stop losses and to manage risk, you can use these concepts. And if you're a trader, I think having a good sense of timing is essential. It comes down to good sense of timing, good risk management. So those will be the things we're really, really going to be wanting to talk about tonight. So now let's go ahead and switch gears. And what we're going to be talking to you about, I'm going to show you where I pulled these strategies from, or these setups tonight. So I pulled all the setups we're going to talk about tonight. We've got some great setups. For those of you who showed up here, I think you're going to really like what you see. And these are setups that come from our scouting reports. In particular, this week I went with this is our Tackle Trading homepage from our weekly options report. And again, this list has been kind of the list that keeps on giving that we put together for you. And let me pop open that options report. Let me get that going there. Oh, my is not playing nice. There it goes. Sometimes my little pen drawing tool gets stuck and then my mouse and keyboard don't work. So options report. And I know a lot of you, again, have access to this and are existing pro members. And Tyler put together a really just awesome report this week, talked about some earnings and volatility strategies that are really, really cool. But I'm talking about most of these strategies, most of these setups, I believe all of them came from this coronavirus bullish watch list. And these are stocks that have performed really exceptionally well under the current market conditions, that have the types of companies that are fundamentally more impervious to the recent shutdown, that aren't as sensitive to the economic disruption that we've seen, and have shown signs of strength, just relative strength against the rest of the market. And there's some really, really good setups there. Now, I want to bring back and talk about the two different technical setups we're going to look for. So let me go ahead and clean that up and talk about that real quick. We're going to talk about breakouts where we find a stock that's knocking up into a resistance zone, like a known resistance zone, and we're going to look for breakout patterns like cups and handles, ascending triangles, high base breakouts. So I found a few good looking cups and handle patterns tonight where you basically buy when the stock breaks out. So if we can catch that breakout. The other setups we're going to see tonight that look really, really good right now are stocks that have been establishing upward trends and then pulled back down into a known support zone and are giving us a signal that the stocks are ready to go back up. So we're going to catch stocks that are either breaking resistance, and those we call breakouts. And we're going to look for retracements, both, and we're going to find both. And then we'll talk about how one could approach trading on those and a lot of the different strategies and things. And then when we're done tonight, I'm going to make everybody an offer just to come join us over at Tackle Trading and check it out. Take advantage of a 15-day trial if you're not already a pro member, and to really just take advantage of that. So now let me go ahead and clean that up, and let's go ahead and jump right in there. So welcome. We got a nice group. Hey, David, how you doing? Glad to see you here. Lorena, ¿qué tal? All right. Okay, let's go through and you guys tell me what you think about these setups. And we'll give them a grade, like on a scale from 1 to 10, how much you guys like this setup. So I'm going to start out, and this is the narrowed down list I pulled from the scouting report. And you'll probably recognize the majority of these symbols. Some of them may not be as common or familiar. Obviously, some of them you can't not know, like Netflix and Domino's Pizza and Microsoft and MasterCard. I mean, big names. But there's some really good looking setups. So we're going to start out here with Net, which this is Cloudflare, an internet security company, website security. And they do have an earnings report coming up here on the 6th. So you got just a little bit of time before earnings. I know a lot of traders might want to avoid earnings. But this pattern that we're looking at right here is a bullish retracement. And this is probably, of all the patterns we're going to look at tonight, probably the messiest pattern, but it's a pretty good looking pattern in general. It's not perfect. It's not the ideal textbook pattern, but it's got the general principle we're looking for. And what I like about this pattern, and what really drew my attention to it that I think was interesting, was one, it just established a new high. 2, this company's been showing good fundamental relative strength. And 3, in our new work from home environment, I believe that even when we come out of this quarantine, more and more businesses are going to realize that they can operate with employees from home. And I think our transition from, the real world to the online world is going to be accelerated a little bit, even more so. And a company like Cloudflare that deals with internet security, website security, and particularly as more and more people are trying to figure out how to sell online, they're going to benefit from that. Now, just posting a brand new high. They have the pattern with higher highs and higher lows. And the fact that the stock broke out to that new high at 27.59 and has pulled down into this old support resistance neighborhood, and also has a rising 50 period moving average. And I have a little indicator on here, a real simple indicator called an RSI, and it's above 50. We want to see that above 50 for relative strength. And it has a couple of other things that I really, really like. The last 2 days, we've seen an uptick in volume as it's been hitting this little support zone. And it's got a little hammer signal candle right there. So there's quite a few things going for it. Now, what makes these types of patterns like a bullish retracement, and this is the first one. We're going to look at all of these tonight. What makes these kinds of patterns, I think, really interesting to traders is the idea that, one, this pattern has a tendency to play out to the upside. When you see this pattern of, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, old resistance support, upward trend channel, moving averages, there's a tendency for this to continue with the trend and for the price to rise after the pullback. Now, guaranteed, not a guarantee, void where prohibited, not valid in all states. I don't know what the future holds for the market tomorrow, next day, by Friday, come next week. None of us do. I will make a bold prediction that tomorrow morning the stock market will open and that trading will start and people will buy and sell stuff. And in this case, what I like about it is I can plan a really simple trade where I could put it in a buy order. I can buy here above that signal candle high or maybe above that moving average. And that's a simple signal. Buy if the stock goes up. Now that's pretty simple. And put a stop loss down below either that candlestick low or maybe that 50 period moving average. And I'll buy with a stop. And then I can put a target out here near the known resistance 27, or potentially shoot for a little bit higher, maybe the top of the channel that it's developing here. And you might see this one pop out, and a good technician will probably say, okay, well, here's the bottom of a channel, here's the top of a channel. And if this trade really ran nicely, it might get out to 29, maybe 30 with a little bit of luck. But what this gives us is we can take a small amount of risk between entry and exit, and we'll call that the risk, in exchange for a favorable amount of, that's not a very good color, let's pick a different one, favorable amount of reward out to the target of 28 or 29. So we have a risk reward ratio, in this case, that's probably at least 1.5 and a half to 1. Or it's 2 to 1. So we got a 2 to 1 reward to risk ratio. And if you take, the risk divided into the reward, that's where you get your reward to risk ratio. So I think we got a 1.5 to 2 to 1 reward to risk ratio on a company that I think is a growth stock with a lot of upside potential. Hey, Emily, glad to see you here. Glad to have you. Got a good little group here tonight. So on a scale from 1 to 10, do you guys like this technical setup? It's not the most textbook perfect one. This is not the kind that I put into a textbook. I've written a few textbooks. And so when I look for those, I usually look for pretty ones. But this is a decent little setup. Can you guys picture yourself planning and placing a trade on that? This is a lower price stock, might be ideal for a simple stock trade. Some traders might say, well, no, I'm not so sure about that earnings. That's just out there on the 6th. That only gives you a week or so to pull a trade off. So maybe that's something that you can maybe discount that trade on. So yeah, it's a decent little trade. And again, whether you do it in a virtual account, like I'm showing you a virtual account, or if you're doing that kind of trade live, it really comes down to how much risk you're willing to accept. And, I've been trading and teaching technical analysis for a lot of years now. And the more and more I trade, and the longer I've been doing this, more it comes down to a good technical setup does nothing more than give you a good risk to reward ratio. The probabilities, it gives you an edge, but it does not predict the future. And so we have to learn to plan and place trades. And one of the real benefits of hanging out with us in our community is you can have a game plan where, okay, you only buy the stock if it gives us that confirmation candle up. And then you have to have a game plan. Well, hey, what if we're wrong? So we have to have a what if it goes down instead of up. And then we have to have a game plan for what if it gets to our profit target. What are you going to do? And if you can think about trades from that what if and have a game plan for all of them, that's how you have to approach trading. Because again, when I was newer to trading, I used to think, well, if I was just a better technician, if I was just a better chartist, I could make more money and eliminate the losers. Or if I did a better job of picking stocks fundamentally, in addition to my technicals, maybe I could improve my outcome. And there's a certain truth to that. But in reality, the market, there's enough random chaos in the market movement that you really can't account for everything. And there's always those unknowns. So that's a pretty decent little setup. So that's an interesting candidate. And that's the kind of stock we'd end up putting on our stock report. That's, lower cost stock, not outrageously expensive. It'd be easy to get in there and buy shares with the stop loss. Glad you made it, Skyla. Glad you made it. It's okay that you're late. I'd rather have you show up than not show up. And it tells me a lot. Hey, Michael Habler, how you doing? Good friend of mine. Glad to have you here. Welcome, welcome. So good group. All right. So now let's switch gears and take a look at this next one. Now, this one is going to come with two questions. One, do you like the setup? And two, what are you guys watching on Netflix? Anything good? I'm in season 2 of Ozark at the moment, and it's pretty darn good. It's a good show to watch. And I think Netflix has really benefited from this current state of affairs, and they've seen subscriber growth expand. And I think from a fundamental perspective, they just had their earnings announcement, which was pretty decent. If you come out and check out their numbers, they actually came pretty darn close to their estimate. Season 2 of Grand Hotel. What else you watching? Kingdom, Money Heist. I haven't seen Money Heist or Kingdom. I'll have to check these out. That's really the reason I'm having you all here tonight, is just to figure out I need a new series on Netflix to watch. Now, this pattern is also a bullish retracement. And this pattern is a little prettier, a little bit more expensive stock. But this pattern's a little prettier. This one, I think, has got a little bit more of that textbook feel to it. It just ripped to a new high. I'm going to show you the things that I really like about this pattern. One, it just ripped to a new high with a really nice increase in momentum. Hit that 450 ballpark, slowed down, put in a little double top, and then it pulled back down. And one of the things I've noticed down here, and this is not the best color for my volume, that's kind of hard to see. But if you look closely down here, you can see the volume really increase on the breakout to the new high. And then the volume really decreases during the selling phase. Volume drops as the stock price drops. And then the last 2 days, as it's hitting that moving average, we're seeing a little uptick in the volume again. So that color is an awful volume color. Maybe I'll swap it out real quick. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put on volume average. And apply that one. That one's easier to see. And then I'm going to go strip off the volume subgraph and put that one off. All right, there you go. Okay. So the volume average is just the same indicator, volume with a moving average on it, and it's color coded, a little bit easier to see. So can you see that a little bit better now that I put on that big breakout above resistance? That's the other signal we're going to talk about tonight is breakouts. Big spike and increase in volume. Selling pressure kicks in. As it sells off, the volume drops, gets down to our catalyst down here, and volume picks up again. This is one of the classic setups that I like to look for. I also like that it has this rising 20 period moving average here in this sky blue color, that rising 20 period moving average. That's a classic buy catalyst. And just below that, we have the known support resistance zone. So I've got a double whammy on that pullback. So we like that. Now, this is a more expensive stock at $422 a share. A lot of people out there, if you got a decent amount of capital, that'd be easy to buy with stock and to trade the stock. A lot of traders might approach that with an options trade. Now, we have over at Tackle Trading, we have a whole playbook. And again, I know a lot of you already know this, but let me bring up our Tackle website again and just show you the playbook here. So let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. Options report. There we go. And let me show you the playbook here. So I'm going to go up under Trade Center, Tackle Trading Playbook. And if you are, again, I know a lot of you already have a good understanding of options and how to approach the market, but we have a whole list of ways. And with a setup like this, I'd be comfortable with strategies like long stock. I would be comfortable probably doing a long call. I would probably be comfortable doing like a bull call spread. That would be a good strategy that would reduce your cost and get that set up. You could also do something if you had a longer term perspective on that, an increase in volatility. Let's double check something here. They've had their earnings, so we're post earnings. We should add a volatility crest. The option should be a little bit cheaper right now. Probably a bull call debit spread would be good. Wouldn't be a bad way to go. Okay. And for those of you who have never seen this before, for example, say you wanted to do a bull call spread. Let me go show you the little playbook here and crack that open. Each strategy's got a little video. It's got a little PDF you can download. So here's a little 17-minute video that teaches you the strategy. Now, I'm not going to make you watch the video, but you can see it goes through and walks you through the steps and processes, teaches all the rules, talks to you about how to approach the market, explains how the position works, breaks down the risk graphs, shows you an example of it. Like a really good, set of tools to help you really learn how to do that. You can also download the PDF. And when you download that PDF, it gives you, again, definitions, general philosophy, gives you some rules and guidelines. So you can use that. And I know a lot of you love that playbook. So that's very, very useful. But whenever I see a stock like this on Netflix, I know I love the setup. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you guys like that setup by comparison? Is that, can you picture yourself planning and placing a trade on that one maybe? And it all comes down to what kind of risk and reward you can define for yourself. So that's a pretty darn good looking setup. What do you guys think of that one? On a scale from 1 to 10, what would you give that? There's a little bit of delay between what I'm seeing in the chat and what I'm watching here, but I think it's a pretty darn good looking setup. Maybe not perfect. Post earnings, I like the fact that it's post earnings too. Dead man on campus. I always love the names you guys come up with. You guys kill me, I swear. Oh yeah, heck yeah. You're already in Netflix. Okay, Jason. Sweet. It's a pretty good one. Okay, not bad, not perfect, but a good looking trade setup. So that bullish retracement, those are the kinds of trade signals. And again, what I would look for on this one, reward to risk ratio wise, is I'd say, okay, look, we can buy if it goes up. So again, buy if you get that confirmation here. This one, you could probably put a stop loss right below the candlestick low. And that's a pretty good amount of risk. The stock currently has a $19.85 ATR and about an $11 expected move. So that's a little bit of volatility, but for a $400 stock, 420 bucks, maybe by the time you buy it, there's a little bit of risk there, but you could again go with, risk profile. And I think the upside potential on this one, known resistance at 450, I think the top side of that target is probably closer to 470, 480 out there. So I think the potential reward far outweighs the risk. So that's a pretty good looking setup there. And that's one of the reasons we like those pullbacks. And again, guaranteed, not a guarantee, but if you were to go back and look at similar patterns on Netflix, when you get a pullback into a known support zone, that's a pretty good looking pattern. Okay. So next on our list here, Domino's Pizza, the good old DPZ. Now I'm not going to lie. I've eaten more pizza under quarantine than I have in a while. And I've ordered my fair share of pizzas in the last month and a half, 2 months. So do you think that their earnings did okay? Recent earnings report, they just post earnings. They beat their estimate handily, not too shabby. Again, a little bit more expensive stock, $362, very liquid. Might be good for options trades. And again, you don't have to necessarily do a pure directional trade. You could do something more like a bull put credit spread where you just bet that it doesn't go down below a certain price point. Maybe you could do a trade like a butterfly or something on that, where you could take some very small risk. And that's one of the benefits of coming out and hanging out with us in the community, is you get to learn a lot of those and talk about a lot of those. So I think this is a pretty decent looking setup. And again, what I like about this setup is poked its head up to a new high. And this one, where it came up and kind of just poked its head up above the high and then pulled back down and came into the rising 20-period moving average, gives us a green signal candle right there, old support resistance zone. If this starts to rise, another pattern is going to form here. What pattern will form here if it starts to rise? See what you guys come up with on that. It's a nice little breakout setup, right? So we got a decent pullback at the moment. And that one there looks a little bit like a cup and handle. You got it. Okay. So that little cup and handle. So I personally, I like the idea of buying it off of this first move up. And some people will say, you know what? No, I'd rather wait for it to break above 380 or break above 387 high. And I'd like to see what you guys think. How many of you would be willing to pull the trigger off of the confirmation up here? Or how many of you'd want to say wait for the breakout? So if you say buy now, go ahead and type in buy now with confirmation, of course. And if you're the person who wants to wait for the cup and handle to form and then breakout, type in wait for the breakout. So I just kind of want to get a feel, because again, we got a good group of people here tonight, good sized group. Sess is going to go half and half. Now Sess, that's pretty smart, where buy some now, buy some later, where you do both, right? You buy in on that trigger. Yeah. So I personally would say I'd go now, and I'd probably be willing to add for the breakout. So decent little setup, right? Not too shabby. It was worth showing up tonight, wasn't it? Just to see that chart. Now, guaranteed, not a guarantee, void for prohibited. I don't know if Domino's Pizza will continue to rise, but what I do like about it is, other than the chart conditions I showed you, where very similar, nice breakout, pull back down on below average volume, rising, signal catalyst, trend zone, a whole lot of technical reasons for it. Buy if it goes up, stop loss below the candle, and profit target. I think 400 is an easy target. Again, the risk to reward ratio is pretty decent there. And that's got potentially more upside potential with cup and handle patterns. A lot of times the breakout can be the same size as the cup. So in this case, if it was 380 down to 280, that's a $100 cup. So that means if it breaks out above 380, that means your target is 480. And that would probably take several weeks, months to get out there to that upper target. But that's when the idea behind the cup and handle is you can take the depth of that cup and that can become your target. And that, again, may take a month or two, but hey, Domino's Pizza is performing well. On these pullbacks, something else I thought I'd point out, that RSI is at 55. So I always want to see an RSI above 50 on the pullback and on breakouts and things. I just don't want to see it above 70. I want to see it strong above 50, not above 70. Okay. You guys ready to switch gears and take a look at the next one? Tell me what you think about this. Again, this one also came from the coronavirus watch list. We got Abbott Labs, ABT. Stock just poked up and it bumped its head literally on $100 even. Like, check that out. I mean, that's a perfect 100. How often do you see that? That's beautiful. Hit right at 100 on a new high, and it's putting in a little pattern. This is a pattern, just a bull pullback, but it might be considered a bull flag because it's got that shallow pullback to it. It's got the old resistance zone at 90. It's got the rising 20 period moving average. It's got a small doji at the moment, may need some better signal. RSI's at 57. The volume on the breakout was nice and strong, but the volume here on the retracement, the flag part of that's been dropping. So not a lot of heavy selling pressure. And again, this one, I'd probably, me personally, I'd say my trigger, I'd want it to clear that 9 period moving average and the flag. I'd like to see a candlestick get up here to give me that signal. But this one could be something where you put in an entry if, you could enter if it goes up here, enter and buy. And then probably in this case, I wouldn't want to get my stop. I'd probably want to get it down below 90. I'd put my exit down below the 20 period moving average. And then upside potential on this, it's got to clear that 100 zone, but expand that out. I think 110 is a reasonable target out there. Whoops, I'll learn how to write one of these days, 110. So I think, again, favorable reward to risk ratio. In and out, already been kicked out of the trade once this week. Yep, that'll happen. It happens to all of us, right? So not a bad setup. 98.50 on that. Some traders might want to wait for the breakout on that one as well. So where you enter that trade, that's where entry techniques. A lot of traders, some traders would be aggressive and go right above the candle. Some would go above like that 9 or whatever 8 period moving average you use. I'd probably take that down intraday and watch for that down on maybe a 30-minute chart. And I would like to see it violate this downward trend. So I'd like to see it violate that downward trend angle it's kind of establishing. And that's not picture perfect, but if it could get out there and or break this 96 resistance, that would probably be reasonable entry criteria for me. 95, 96. Yeah. Just wondering if it touches the 23.6% fib. Let's double check it, Michael. Let's double check that. Low to high. It's right at the 23% fib, 23.6. So that adds one more catalyst to the setup. Now that doesn't guarantee it pops up from here, but that's a decent, that's what we're after. We're after that pullback into a support zone, into a catalyst, a reason for people to buy it. Not just a random pullback, but you need that setup that way. So that one's pretty good. Yeah. So like the retracement, again, RSI at 57, pretty good little setup. Okay, let's take a look at this next one here. I already have a credit spread on that. Beautiful Memphis. That's what I'm talking about. That's probably one of the better ways to approach this, because then you don't even have to have the perfect sense of timing, right? You're doing an out of the money, I'm assuming slightly higher probability bull put credit spread, something like that. Or maybe you're doing a bull call credit spread or debit spread where you got a 95 by 100. Okay. So I might even go something like, hey, out of the money, like 85 by 80 bull put credit spread, and just bank on that support zone, taking it up and it not dipping down below the 200 period moving average there. Okay. Baba Black Sheep. Okay, this one is, and again, I know some of you are obviously familiar with Baba, the Alibaba group. This is your Asian Amazon, right? And you got a nice breakout to a recent high, cleared all the moving averages, pulled back down below the 9, but it's hitting that rising 20 and the 50 period moving average and the old support resistance zone. I'm sure I could draw a Fibonacci ratio on there too. And we got our 1-day candle, an uptick in volume. Earnings is a way out. With earnings coming, I'd expect volatility to rise and stay up. And with Amazon reporting this week, I don't know how Amazon's going to perform, but this is one of those things where if Amazon performs well, Baba is kind of simpatico. It's gonna, again, similar business models, different parts of the world, but I like the general setup. And in this case, again, risk reward, small profile risk. I think your target on this one's 220 to 230 known resistance zones. So the reward to risk ratio on that's pretty favorable. Not too shabby. Got 100 call for June. Oh, that's probably on the last one, right, Tiago? That was on Abbott. Yep. Okay, perfect. But that's a decent little setup if you guys like that one. Now, we've been catching mostly pullbacks at the moment. A couple of these are breakout setups. Tell me, guys, what you think about this one here, MasterCard. Now, MasterCard just had earnings, beat their estimate, already running up, closed above its 200 period moving average and resistance today. So this isn't a pullback. This is a breakout setup. Big uptick on volume and earnings. RSI is at 59, so we're not overbought or overextended. And in this case, I love the fact that it's back up above all the moving averages, in particular that 200 period moving average. So closing above resistance, closing above the moving average, and coming off of a positive earnings report with an uptick. I think this one would be a reasonable enter above today's candle high, just a stop loss down below the candle low. Upside target potential on this one's probably 320, with luck out over time, 340. Maybe 300 in the near term, might just because it's a fat number. But plenty of reward to the upside, plenty of risk management skill here. And, I wonder about consumer credit agencies, or not agencies, but, providers like MasterCard and Visa and those, just with increased unemployment, they may have some risk. But decent little breakout setup. It checks a lot of boxes for me. And I just went through the list on the scouting report and just picked off all the ones that I thought had reasonable timing mechanisms for now. So I like the room to run on that particular candidate. Got plenty of options on it, liquid options. Of course, you could trade just the stock, or you could do long calls or call debit spread or a bull put credit spread. You could go through the playbook and take advantage of that. After earnings, volatility's dropped a little bit. I think a debit spread might be appropriate for that, or a credit spread if you don't want to be too aggressive. So scale from 1 to 10. What do you guys think of that? MasterCard, decent. Is it worth showing up tonight, by the way? Now, I recognize most of your names as folks who are part of our community already, pro members. And for those of you who are not pro members yet, we got our 15-day free trial for you to check out. And that's one of the reasons we're doing these live webinars, just invite more people to join, to come hang out with us, get to know us better, learn, see what we have to offer. And we work hard to provide value, provide good setups. Yep. So glad you guys are here. So opportunity to the upside. And got a couple more now. I do have to check out right at the top of the hour. So let's go through these next ones, and then I'm just going to make everybody that 15-day free trial offer to come check it out. What do you guys think of Microsoft? Microsoft's not quite at the breakout yet. Not quite at the breakout. Maybe a little ways to go to clear 180. Just had earnings. Beat their earnings estimate. Came in at 140. Okay. Yeah. And we've got similar criteria. This is kind of a high basing pattern. Back up above all the moving averages. I'd like to see a trigger above 180 resistance. Use a trail stop below candlesticks. Make sure you're at least an ATR away. RSI is at 58, showing strength, but not overbought. That's important. Volume was quiet before, and we got an uptick on earnings. That's normal. And Microsoft, of course, I think this type of business environment doesn't really hurt a company like Microsoft as much, other than the decrease in unemployment. But lots of businesses are looking for more and more solutions to take their businesses online. And I know Microsoft has lots and lots of product offerings to help us with those things. And I like Microsoft from the fundamental perspective. This is one of those companies you don't mind owning. They do pay a dividend. You know they're not going out of business anytime soon. It's the type of thing you could buy and hold from an investor standpoint. But that's a pretty decent looking setup. Maybe a day or two away from an entry point on that. But same type of thing where, okay, if it breaks out, I got a target of 190, the recent high. And then above that, I think 200's a very reasonable target for it. Not too far out there. So potential reward, like if you get 190 to 200 and you do a risk down here at like 170, you could risk, 10 with the potential upside of 20 points. Not too shabby, not too shabby at all. Okay. All right. That was pretty quick and easy. Now, VIPS. This is more of a stock report type pick. VIP stores. They do have earnings coming out, but not until the 20th. So you got plenty of time between now and earnings. Just poked up to a new high. Pulled back down. This is also a tackle 25 candidate, if I'm not mistaken. Pull back down into the rising 20 period moving average. Couple of days of consolidation in here where we've got green candle, long shadows, green candle, red candle, kind of hanging out here. $16 support resistance zone. This is another pullback. So $16 support zone, rising 20 period moving average. The volume picture on this one, you did have a positive uptick in volume on the breakout right here. You got some mixed volumes, small and typical volume on the pullback. And you see volume building a little bit more in the last 3 days as it's hitting that $16 support zone. I think the target on this is 19 and 20. So in this case, I think you could be a buyer at 17, buy above 17. We'll say at or greater than 17. I think you could do stop losses down below 16. So sell if it dips below 16. We'll say if it's less than 16. And then targets of 19 and 20. So that gives you, I think, 2 to 3 points of upside potential. So do you think that a $1 risk for a 2 to 3 point upside is worthwhile? Now, VIPS liquidity on options. That's a great question, Thiago. And that's why one of the reasons I said this might be more a stock report candidate is just because of that. It does have weekly options, does have lots of options. A really good gauge is to go look at like 1-2 months out and get an idea. If I was taking a trade on this, I might use a weekly. I might just go straight out to June, maybe take the June 5th. You've got 15-cent bid-ask spreads, looks like, in that ballpark. Maybe 20 cents, 15, somewhere in that ballpark. Volume and open interest. Let's take a look at that. Pretty lacking in liquidity on those weeklies. Now, those are the last set of weeklies just rolled out. Let's go check out the Junes. Leaving a little bit to be desired on the liquidity question. So I would put that back on you, Thiago. It does have weeklies. Could be valid for naked puts. Yeah, absolutely. No reason you couldn't do that. It's certainly tradable. The bid-ask spreads are where I'm comfortable. And in a stock like this, I don't mind trading the options on it, but I'm not going to do, a ton of contracts. If it's got less liquidity and I look at the open interest, for example, here's a simple way to think about it. So if I've got like 68, let's say an average of 50 contracts outstanding between 68 and 40, I oftentimes will go buy right out of the money on the calls. And if I bought 5 contracts, I would be 10% of that market. I wouldn't do any more than 5 contracts on that. Does that make sense? Because if I bought more contracts, being, going big or something like that, and I bought 20 or 30 contracts because the options are cheap, I'd be half the market. So I have a simple rule: never be more than 10% of the market. And I prefer trading something with more liquidity on the options. And in that case, I probably wouldn't even buy 5. I'd go in, buy 1 or 2, call it good, not risk a ton of money. Just throw it out there, see if it sticks. Also a decent candidate for just straight up stock. Could be the kind of thing, maybe I only sell naked puts on stuff I really want to own. Like I really, truly want to own it. So it's serviceable. Options are serviceable on it, but not textbook perfect. Okay. So that's a good idea on that one. All right. So 2 more candidates in 10 minutes. We can do it. Newmont. This is a shallow pullback. This is not a big pullback. And this one has earnings on the 5th. So I might not like this one as much. But this is one where on the stock report, you guys will recall, I put this on the stock report, 2 weeks ago? So 2 weeks ago, I put together on the stock report all the metal mining stocks, precious metals, and the gold mining stocks. And we crushed it. I mean, we picked off stocks like Newmont. We can just look at the gold miners index, the GDX. It broke out and ripped. We had wheat and precious metals on there. It broke out and ripped. We had AU on there. It broke out and ripped. Nailed it. Like, right? Totally worth, being a Tackle Trading Pro member just for that setup alone. Ooh, wait. AU is a prettier setup. Newmont out. AU in. All right. Boom. Okay. So there we go. Newmont out. AU in. Nice little pullback into the rising 9 with a hammer candle. I like this pullback better. Pullback, shallow pullback, rising 9, hammer candle. I think your target on this is 28 to 30. Not a worry about earnings. Yep, not too shabby. So there you go on the fly. Now, options on AU, they don't have weeklies. You go out to June options, the bid-ask spreads are like 30 cents. My cutoff is 30 cents. So these options right here all have 30-cent bid-ask spreads. That means if you're shaving it, you got a 15-cent spread if you're doing half the bid-ask spread. So not bad, but I would probably be more comfortable just trading the stock on that, just straight up stock trade. Okay. Then last but not least, I should have saved the best setup for last. I should have thought that through, but I didn't. I was just going for it. EDU, New Oriental Education Company, breakout setup above 128. Multiple bottoms come in here. You got a big W pattern back up above all the moving averages, and it's knocking on that 127 resistance. Now, this one does have overhead resistance from the past. So, I mean, you got to deal with, the 140 high. You got to deal with that, some kind of noise out here, 135. But risk, I'd say stop loss below the candle. Maybe if you want to go loose, stop below 120. So you got a small amount of risk compared to, I think, what we consider upside reward. That's pretty solid. And this is one of those, they're kind of a coding tech education company out of China. They have been a pretty strong, candidate over the years. It's been on our watch list many, many, many times over the years. But after the market volatility kicked in, and they just had their earnings announcement, and again, so they came out with a decent little response, uptick in volume, bottoms at 110. I think a breakout here above 127 is not a bad setup. So not a bad one to worry about. So out of all of the candidates tonight, what was your favorite? What setup did you like the most? Just out of curiosity. And was it worth showing up tonight just to get a couple of those? And don't hesitate to give us a like and a share, by the way, if you liked the candidates and setups you got here tonight. Okay, we got a vote for Microsoft. We got a vote for MasterCard. Don't be shy. I like the AU. Abbott's a pretty setup. AU's not a bad little setup. Okay. Gotta like the Netflix setup. Gotta like the Netflix. Yeah, it's decent. DPZ. DPZ is pretty too. Oh, Netflix versus Microsoft. That is a tough choice, Jonathan. If you do small enough position sizes, you can trade both. Okay. So no reason you can't, right? They have pretty good setups. Now, if you are a Tackle Trading Pro member already, I want you to type in the chat, shout out pro member. Because I know a lot of folks here are already pro members, but I know there's a handful here that are new to us and they're just getting to know us and then maybe not pro members yet. And we just want to give everybody an invitation to come check it out. We're going to offer everybody a 15-day free trial. So let me bring that back up here real quick. The most liquid ones, those mainstream companies like MasterCard, Netflix, DPZ, those are going to be the best for options for sure. And just Tackle Trading homepage. So let me get you to the Tackle Trading homepage real quick here. And if you scroll down to the bottom of our homepage, you got our 15-day free trial right there. So start your 15-day free trial. You'll get a one-on-one consultation with Frank, the famous, the one, the only breakout Frank. Let me see if I can get that into the chat there. I'm on two different machines, so I've got it to get that link in the chat. And that may take me some finagling. Let me see if I can pull that off real quick here. And I'll throw that in the chat for you. And just invite everybody to come out and take advantage of that 15-day free trial because it's awesome. It's free. And we just want to show you what kind of value we have here and how we can help you each and every week with our scouting reports and setups and coaches shows. And the daily trading lounges and everything else. And just another quick question for all the pro members out there. What is your favorite tackle trading feature? What's the thing you like the most about tackle trading? What's your favorite feature, the go-to thing you guys can't do without? Put that link in there for you just so you have it. Halftime reports, morning lounge. I love the lounge. Us, you guys, the coaches. Yep. The community. My favorite part of the community is you guys as well. So I hope you all enjoyed yourselves tonight. You learned something. You found a couple of good trading ideas. And we're not high pressure sales. In fact, we are so bad at selling our own product. We really rely on our pro members to do it for us. So if you're new to us, just come check it out. Come get to know us. And we're all about the education. It's about the financial education. It's about learning and practicing and getting that, education as you learn and practice and master that application. So the more you know, the more you can grow, the more you learn, the more you can earn. And we've got an awesome community over at tackletrading.com. So come check it out. Come join us. And we are right up against the top of the hour. And I promised you we'd be finished right on the dot. So we are out of here. I got to get like the Dennis Miller thing and like sign off like we are out of here. Good night. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow in the lounge.